Hello and welcome back to the zone, everybody. Welcome back to Stalker 2, where today we're going to be reviewing a weapon. This is the Boomstick. This is the very first shotgun, or one of the first shotguns that you can get. Funny enough, I'm actually doing a shotgun-only run right now in Stalker, and this was not the first shotgun I found. I found the full-size double barrel first, and then found a Boomstick shortly afterward. So that was a little bit unexpected. The Boomstick can be found in pretty much any of the starting areas in Stalker 2. And it remains a fairly common weapon throughout the early game of Stalker 2. This depends on how fast you progress the main story, because then enemies will start spawning in with more advanced gear later on, and boomsticks become more of a rarity then. You can still find them as they are used in traps around the map, so be careful of tripwires because you might get shot with a shotgun, although a lot of times they miss, I've noticed. Whether you're moving too quickly or too slowly, you have to be moving at like the right movement speed to actually get hit by them. So let's go over the stats of the Boomstick and kind of the pros and cons of the Boomstick. So the Boomstick, 4 damage, has maxed out damage. It's got all 5 bars there. And just like all the shotguns do really high damage per shot, as you would kind of hope that they would. Although they do kind of have damage drop off fairly quickly, so at longer ranges it's not going to be as useful, and it's not going to be as consistent, at least if you're using the buckshot or the expanding rounds. But if you are using slugs, then it should remain consistent at most ranges. Penetration is kind of low in the Boomstick, but most of the shotguns don't have really high pen, so that's okay. It's nothing way crazy. Rate of fire is nearly maxed out. This is simply because you can pull the triggers really quickly, one right after the other, although you do have to manage the recoil, because otherwise you're probably going to hit with the first one and then be high on the second one. And it does only have the 2 shots, so after that you are going to need to reload it, although the Boomstick does reload fairly quick. Range is very short. I think this is the shortest range out of any of the shotguns, which does make sense for a sawed-off double barrel. It shouldn't have very long range, and its accuracy is okay for a shotgun. Maybe not really that great, not the best compared to some of the others. For the general pros of the Boomstick, it is a very common early game weapon, so finding these is not going to be that difficult. It uses pretty common ammo as well. The 12 gauge is not super difficult to find throughout any point in the game. Pretty much all the vendors sell it, so that's really good, and they usually sell a decent amount of it. And if you just want to go with buckshot, it's not very expensive. Slugs are about twice as much as what buckshot is, but that's still not necessarily the worst, just given how much damage you do get from that. Just like all the shotguns, really high damage at close range. It's really good for engaging enemies. It's really good for just fighting off mutants. That's going to be like sort of the main job that shotguns generally have. They can still work against people, especially indoors, but they are most effective at close range when fighting melee enemies, like pretty much all the mutants are. This one's also very lightweight. I think the Boomstick is the most lightweight out of any of the shotguns, only weighing 1.94 kilos. So it's not very heavy. You can actually carry around quite a few Boomsticks if you would like, which wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing in the early game. So far with my shotgun only run, it's kind of nice to have another one in case one starts to break. You can at least have that. This one's also pretty cheap to repair too. So if you do want to repair it, you absolutely can. And its upgrades are also very cheap and available at every single technician across the map. So if you want to upgrade the Boomstick, you absolutely can. Major cons to the Boomstick is that this one will fall off compared to the other shotguns. It's consistent at close range, and it's still good for the 2 tabs, but holding 2 rounds is just not going to be as good as some of the other shotguns that can hold more. It also has very short range compared to the other shotguns, so if you want something with a bit longer range, if you want to engage things at medium range, the sawed-off double barrel is probably not going to be your best bet. It also doesn't have very many upgrades overall. Weirdly enough, all of its upgrades kind of go for accuracy and recoil reduction, which you wouldn't really think for the sawed-off double barrel. And speaking about upgrades, this one, you can get all the upgrades like right away at the very first technician, which is really good if you want to do that. None of these cost very much. They only affect the accuracy. I have a comparison here pulled up between all the stats that actually change between a standard Boomstick and a fully upgraded Boomstick. And as you can see, it pretty much just doubles its accuracy, which is kind of surprising. The other stats really don't change though. Its penetration, its range, rate of fire, and damage all stay the same. So if you want to upgrade it, you absolutely can. It's not going to cost you very much. And it's not going to cost you a whole lot more if you want to like start repairing your Boomstick once it is fully upgraded, so that's pretty nice, but it doesn't get that much better than what it starts out as. For a tier list rating for the Boomstick, I'm going to put this thing into like C tier. It's decent in the early game, but it's going to fall off pretty quick. You can get the full-size double barrel also in the early game, which you could argue is better than this. It has longer range. You can change it to where it only uses slugs, and that makes it so it has even better pen range, which can be kind of good if you want to take both of these. That's what I ended up doing on my shotgun only run, where I found a full-size double barrel, converted it to where it could only use slugs, then use the sawed-off double barrel to where it would just be using buckshot, and then I would just use that at very close range, especially against mutants, and then I would use the full-sized double barrel with slugs to engage enemies at a distance. That did help out a little bit. So it does kind of have a niche in the early game, but later on it will get outcompeted by some of the other ones. Once you get like the pump shotgun, you don't really need the double barrel anymore because you can just do fairly fast follow-up shots with that and you have a whole lot more rounds. It especially kind of falls off once like the Sega gets introduced, because then it's a semi-automatic shotgun with a detachable magazine, so you can just spam fire it at enemies at close range, and that will kind of beat the boomstick in usefulness early on and later on too. Same thing kind of goes with like the KSG, where that one also fires twice and then is pump action, so you just hold way more rounds. That one holds 14, so you got that and you're pretty good to go. But not bad in the early game. Tell me your thoughts on the boomstick. I would really like to hear that. Tell me what you would like to see next. Thank you guys so very much for watching this. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye bye everybody.